All of these things, to my mind, are products of black markets, which we've created with our own policy. By having the drug war, by making it illegal to engage in certain transactions, by having heavy immigration restrictions that creates a black market for the trafficking of human beings across the border, we've effectively created this pocket of anarchy in which government, by its own choice, does not exist. And when you have a situation like that where people can't go to an institutional authority to resolve their complaints against their coyote or against their drug dealer or whatever the case may be, then it becomes a scenario where might makes right, and it's the rule of the brute, and that translates into all this violence that's often attributed to the border. Is there a connection there between the policies that we've adopted in terms of what domestically with the drug war and these immigration restrictions and the violence that we've seen as a result emerging out of these cartels and whatnot at the border?
Well, I think there is a policy problem, but it doesn't come from our side. It comes from the Mexican side. As I mentioned, I mean, one of the early popes gave the entire Western Hemisphere to Spain, to the Spanish king. And that claim has been exerted all the way up to Minnesota. This used to belong to Spain before the Louisiana Purchase. And it's ridiculous. And so, but the reality is that Mexicans have been highly concentrated in the Mexico City area. I mean, it's the largest city in the hemisphere, always has. I think it's 30 million right now. It dwarfs any of our cities. And they don't care about the border. They're making a lot of money down there. They're very talented people. They got engineering. They invented the zero.
All that may be true, but the point that I'm driving at here is that if you go and you talk to, and there's a documentary you can find on social media called The Wall that interviews ranchers who actually live down there.
Right.
And they'll tell you from their 40, 50, 60 years of experience living on the border that illegal immigration has increased exponentially. And they don't draw the connection, but the connection that I see is that it has increased right alongside the advent and expansion of the drug war and increases in immigration enforcement, which have created these black markets that suck people in. Now, the other side of that, I will grant you, which you've also addressed, is the welfare state and the economic draw of being able to come here for opportunity. So it's a multifaceted issue.
I'm not so much into that. What I'm saying is that they're not doing anything else with the border. Now, I talked with a Mexican man about my idea of the border states working together, including 10 Mexican border states south of the border. And he says they simply can't control the situation. There's been no development there, so it's wide open for drugs. We need a program where we show the people they can do other things than raise illegal drugs or traffic in illegal drugs like we had in Afghanistan. So people can live safely because everybody's living in half of these people are running away from that situation.
Right.
I was one of the early people who said, there could be an asylum issue if they're shooting everybody and you're scared for your life. There is one, but it's not one that we're recognizing right now. The other thing we can do is work bilaterally, which I have suggested since 2010, in the area of human rights and security. So we're cooperating with the Mexican government, whether it's those 10 states or with the support of Mexico City, to keep that area safe. I don't see why.
Does Mexico have any interest in doing that?
The 10 governors do. How many people got killed in the Mexican election so far? 120 people is the latest figure I heard. They're candidates, and they're killed in the election because they're trying to address this situation.
By the cartels.
Well, by people who don't want them to have a normal development on the border cooperating with the United States. So we need someone as a president of Mexico, whether it's Obrador or whether it's someone else, who's going to work with us as human beings. Not to demonize us, not to demonize Donald Trump, but to say, we're all human beings, we're all one, and let's get along. Let's get along. And if we build a strong border with security, but also community, with safety and security for everybody, people will want to go there. because it could add to our gross domestic product, because we can make things. We can make cars, for instance, where we make the body of the car on this side of the border, and we have an integration where with parts being outsourced to Mexican companies, and people can come there and create jobs. It can be GM.
I find myself really confused by what you're proposing, because on the one hand, it sounds very much like free market, mutually beneficial relationships and transactions,
Right.
but taking place across a 10 to 12 foot wall that people can't cross.
The wall isn't just the places that you don't have a city. We have walls, there's like pairs of U.S. and Mexican cities. I know El Paso and Juarez. Mm-hmm. They are a pair. Now, if you had more industry there on both sides, you don't really, from what I remember, you didn't have really much industry in El Paso, but you could. And you could all along the border out to California, and you can be bringing back jobs from overseas, from China. You can be creating cars. This is what GM does. If you look at GM, they're in Canada, they're in the United States, they're in Mexico. They're all over the place. And that's the government's now, right? I mean, very close relationship with the government. We can go in there and create industry and manufacturing. Like I say, these people are very talented. They manufacture a lot of things, including cars, cameras, computers. There's no problem with that. They need to kind of reorient their economy, and we should integrate ours with them.
All right.
And we could have a great future.
That leads to another issue involving the economy, which is tariffs. I want to get into that when we return. We'll also take a call from Mike in Farmington and anybody else who wants to contribute. 651-989-5855. Closing argument.